Welcome to World Prism. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The China-Europe Railway Express, a key artery of the Belt and Road Initiative, was once hailed as a modern marvel of logistics and international cooperation. Stretching thousands of kilometers across mountains, plains, and borders, it connected the factories of China with the markets of Europe, promising a new era of prosperity and partnership. For years, this railway symbolized the promise of fast, seamless trade between China and Europe, reducing shipping times from weeks to mere days, and offering a vital alternative to sea and air routes. But in September 2025, that promise shattered in an instant, sending shockwaves through the global logistics industry. Poland abruptly closed all border crossings with Belarus, citing urgent national security concerns amid escalating regional tensions. The Małaszewicze-Brest crossing, where 90% of EU-bound Chinese rail cargo passed, fell silent overnight, its bustling platform suddenly deserted. Over 130 freight trains, carrying billions in goods ranging from electronics to machinery, were stranded in Belarus, unable to move forward or return home. The corridor, once a symbol of global connectivity and economic ambition, became a stark casualty of geopolitics, its tracks now eerily quiet. The closure exposed the fragility of global supply chains, showing how years of progress and prosperity can be upended by a single political decision, leaving businesses scrambling and markets uncertain. Poland's move was a direct response to rising tensions with Russia and Belarus, highlighting the vulnerability of even the most ambitious infrastructure projects to the unpredictable tides of international politics. The world was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. Economic interdependence, no matter how advanced, is always at the mercy of political will and shifting alliances. The ripple effects were felt in boardrooms and households alike, as supply chains faltered and costs soared. The sudden silence on the tracks echoed far beyond Poland, forcing a global reckoning with the risks embedded in modern trade, and reminding us that the flow of goods can be stopped in a heartbeat. Poland's border closure wasn't impulsive, it was a calculated response to escalating threats. The trigger, massive Russian-Belarusian military exercises near Poland's border, including simulated nuclear strikes and drone incursions. For Warsaw, these weren't just drills. They were warnings. Security, not commerce, became the priority. The EU quickly backed Poland, framing the closure as a defense of European sovereignty against Russian aggression. Poland's role as a trade gateway was always conditional. When forced to choose, it raised the drawbridge, sacrificing economic gains for national security. The message was clear. In today's Europe, security trumps trade. The closure marked a fundamental shift. Poland and the EU would no longer risk stability for the sake of commerce. The border shutdown triggered chaos across global supply chains. Billions in electronics, batteries, and consumer goods sat idle in Belarus, while freight rates for alternative routes and air cargo soared. The Małaszewicze-Brest junction, once obscure, became infamous as the world's most expensive bottleneck. Poland lost hundreds of millions in customs revenue overnight, and local businesses faced ruin. The incident shattered the railway's reputation for reliability, forcing companies to rethink their dependence on a single corridor. The crisis exposed the hidden risks of lean, just-in-time supply chains. The era of frictionless Eurasian trade was over, replaced by a new age of uncertainty and risk. The great pileup in Belarus became a global symbol of how quickly geopolitics can derail commerce. Beijing's response to the crisis was cautious and restrained. Chinese officials chose their words carefully, aware that any misstep could have far-reaching consequences for their international relationships. The world watched closely, waiting to see if China would take a more assertive stance or continue its measured approach. Publicly, China called for a swift reopening of the border and urged all parties to resolve their differences peacefully. However, behind closed doors, its influence was limited. Poland's security concerns were non-negotiable, and Chinese diplomats found themselves unable to sway the situation. The crisis highlighted the boundaries of China's diplomatic reach in Europe. China faced a dilemma. It couldn't openly criticize Russia, its key strategic partner and a vital source of energy and political support. At the same time, it couldn't afford to alienate the European Union, its largest trading partner and a crucial market for Chinese exports. This balancing act put Beijing in an uncomfortable position. Supporting Russia risked further alienating Europe, potentially leading to economic repercussions and diplomatic isolation. On the other hand, siding with Europe risked undermining its no-limits partnership with Moscow. a relationship China has carefully cultivated to counterbalance Western influence. The shutdown exposed the limits of China's power. Its vast economic might didn't automatically translate into leverage over NATO or the EU. Despite its investments and trade ties, China found itself unable to shape the outcome or protect its interests in the region. Beijing was forced to watch as its flagship Belt and Road Initiative corridor was paralyzed by a conflict it had only indirectly fueled. The vision of seamless Eurasian connectivity was suddenly at risk, and Chinese officials could do little but monitor the situation from afar. The crisis revealed a painful truth. China's grand strategy is vulnerable to the very alliances it depends on. Its ambitions for global influence are constrained by the unpredictable dynamics between its partners and rivals, making its path forward more complicated than ever. Caught between a belligerent partner and a wary customer, China could only plead for a return to business as usual. For now, Beijing's hopes for stability and uninterrupted trade rest on the decisions of others, leaving its leaders to navigate an increasingly complex diplomatic landscape. The railway shutdown exposed a core weakness in the Belt and Road Initiative: dependence on the political stability of transit countries. China's investments in infrastructure couldn't prevent a closure triggered by Moscow's actions, not Beijing's. The crisis highlighted the contradiction at the heart of China's foreign policy. Its economic ambitions in Europe are undermined by its strategic partnership with Russia. For Europe, the corridor became a vector for influence from two authoritarian powers, not just a trade route. The event was a warning. BRI corridors are only as strong as the political relationships that sustain them. China's dream of seamless trade collided with the reality of national sovereignty and security alliances. The future of the BRI depends not just on building infrastructure, but on navigating a world where security trumps commerce. With the main Eurasian rail corridor blocked, shippers scrambled for alternatives. Sea freight, though reliable, was slow and costly. Transit times tripled, and container rates soared. The middle corridor, bypassing Russia via Central Asia and the Caucasus, offered hope, but lacked capacity and efficiency. Upgrading this route will take years, but the crisis has made it a strategic priority for China and its partners. The Arctic Polar Silk Road is being explored, but remains a distant, risky prospect. For Poland, the disruption threatens its status as Europe's gateway. For China, it's a wake-up call to diversify trade routes. The scramble to reroute trade is reshaping global supply chains and spheres of influence. The closure of a single border has set off a costly long-term transformation of East-West commerce. The border crisis may have lasted just 2 weeks, but its impact will be felt for years to come. What seemed like a temporary disruption has, in fact, exposed deep vulnerabilities in the arteries of Eurasian trade. The shockwaves are rippling far beyond the border, forcing governments, businesses, and entire industries to rethink their strategies and priorities. The era of prioritizing economic integration is over. Security now comes first, especially in Eastern Europe. Political tensions and military posturing have replaced the optimism of open borders, and the specter of conflict now overshadows every cross-border transaction. The focus has shifted from growth to protection, from opportunity to risk management. The land bridge, once celebrated as a symbol of global connectivity, is no longer a reliable corridor. Instead, it has become a politically volatile route, shadowed by the threat of sudden closure or disruption at any moment. Every shipment now carries uncertainty, and every delay is a reminder of the fragile balance between commerce and geopolitics. The EU is rethinking its dependence on China, accelerating efforts to build economic resilience and strategic autonomy. European leaders are urgently seeking alternatives, investing in new infrastructure, and forging new alliances to reduce exposure to geopolitical shocks. For China, the crisis is a turning point. Diversification and redundancy are now strategic imperatives. Chinese policymakers are exploring new routes, strengthening ties with alternative partners, and investing in technologies to safeguard their supply chains from future disruptions. The over-reliance on the Russia-Belarus route has been exposed as a critical error. What was once seen as a shortcut is now recognized as a choke point, vulnerable to political whims and international disputes. The future of Eurasian trade will be defined by risk, redundancy, and a new calculus of trust. Companies and countries alike are reassessing their supply chains, weighing the costs of security against the benefits of efficiency. The brief closure of the new Silk Road marked the collision of global commerce with the hard realities of great power competition. As the world adapts, the question remains, will new barriers divide Eurasia, or will innovation and cooperation find a way forward?